Hey all, I just wanted to go over some review questions for the test on Thursday, Friday about finding slope and slopes of parallel and perpendicular lines. So a few ways that we'll see questions asked to be able to find slope or slope between parallel and perpendicular lines would be to be given the equation of the line, or given 2 points on a line, or given a graph of a line. And in this case, I have the equation of two lines. And we want to describe the relationship. So we want to decide, are they parallel? Are they perpendicular? Or are they neither? Neither means they're not parallel, not perpendicular. So parallel lines never touch. Perpendicular lines make right angles when they cross. That's what that little box in the corner means. And then lines that are neither parallel or perpendicular will cross in some way, but they won't make right angles. So they'll intersect. They're not parallel, they're not perpendicular, so they don't make right angles. So we have two equations here. They're in y equals mx plus b form. And I like to write y equals mx plus b above it. And then we can identify the slope as the number in front of x. So the slope of this line is -3. The slope of this line is -3. And so when the slopes are the same, when they're the exact same, then we say that those lines are parallel. So if we were to graph these two lines, they would be parallel. So let me actually graph these. There's my two lines, and you can see they're slanted the same way. They both are going down to the right, and they will never ever touch. You can tell they'll never touch because they're parallel. We're going to try to find the same thing here. And so again, we're going to look at the slopes. And I can see the slope of this line is 3. And the slope of this line is 1/3. And so they're not the same, so they're definitely not parallel. In order for them to be perpendicular, one of them needs to be positive and then one of them needs to be negative. They're both positive, so they cannot be perpendicular either. They are flipped fractions, so that's one thing that has to happen when two lines are perpendicular, but they also have to have one positive and one negative. Since they're both positive, these are neither parallel or perpendicular. So I can graph those. Here's my first one. And there's my second one. And then we can see that they cross, but they don't make right angles. So they intersect, but they're not perpendicular, and they're definitely not parallel because they intersect. Here we have one line, line M, that goes through these 2 points. And we have another line that goes through these 2 points. And we want to know, are they parallel, perpendicular, or neither? And so the way we could do that is just by doing the slope formula. And finding the slope. So I label x1, y1, x2, y2, and I'm going to have to do this twice, once for line M and once for line P. So I get 1/5 for line M. That's my slope for line M. And let's do the slope for line P. And again, I always write the slope formula. I always label my points. It helps me not make mistakes. On top here, I get -5, and on the bottom, 1. So they're not parallel because they're not exactly the same. They are flipped fractions. I have 1 over 5 and 5 over 1. Those are flipped. The 1 over 5 is positive. The 5 over 1 is negative. So one's positive, one's negative. So these are perpendicular lines. So the lines that go through uh, the line that goes through these 2 points and the line that goes through these 2 points are perpendicular. That means they'll cross. So line M goes up to the right, and line P goes down to the right, and they will make right angles. They're perpendicular. Again, this is all about the slope. Find the slope and see how it's related. In this one, we just want to find the slope. So when we have the graph of a line, we can find the slope by putting 2 points on that line and then doing some counting. Remember, we start from the left and we always go up or down first. So I had to go down 8 units. Down is negative. And again, when we have a line that goes down to the right, I'm always going to have a negative slope. I went to the right, that's positive 3. So my slope is -8 over 3. To get from this point, I had to go down 8 to the right 3 to get to the next point on the line. Here I want the perpendicular slope. So in order to find the slope of a line perpendicular to this one, I'm going to find its slope. So I'll find 2 points. And I'll count from the left point up 1 to the right 5. It goes up to the right, so the slope is positive. So the slope of a perpendicular line, so any line that's perpendicular to this blue one, we're going to flip the fraction over and we're going to change its sign. So my original slope was positive, so my perpendicular slope is negative. So if I wanted to make a perpendicular line, I could pick any point and go down 5 to the right 1. And I can make a line. Whoops, that line's not the best. Let's fix it. And those 2 lines are perpendicular. It should look like I've made right angles, 90-degree angles between them. And then lastly, I want the slope of a parallel line to this one. So parallel lines have the same slope. So if I find the slope of this line, then I know what the slope of a parallel line is. So I'm going to count up 6 to the right 5. Up goes on top, right goes on the bottom. The line goes up to the right, so it's definitely a positive slope. Up is positive, right is positive. This is a positive slope. Parallel lines have the same slope, so my parallel slope is also 6 over 5. So if I pick any point and I go up 6 and I go right 5, oops, I'm going to be off the graph a little bit. I can draw a parallel line. 2 lines that will never ever touch each other. So that's all I have here. If you do have questions about parallel lines, perpendicular lines, finding slope, any of that stuff, make sure you send me an email. Make sure you let me know if you want. You can stop by office hours, get help while you can. test for period 2 and period 6 on Thursday, test for period 1 on Friday.